call it the ABA, the American Basketball Association.
There was something fresh in the ABA. We getting ready to show y'all, man, what y'all was missing.
And that thanks everyone, really.
We owe a great deal to the ABA.
Pro basketball's most exciting new idea.
It was way ahead of its time.
Changed the history of the league.
The NBA, they weren't ready for it.
Hey everybody, welcome to the 50, 40, 90 interview series. I'm Uriah Young, and today we are joined by two-time Emmy Award winner Kenan Holley. He is a Houston native and former Duke University football player who has built an impressive career in sports storytelling. Beginning at NFL Films, he honed his craft under legendary documentarian Steve Sabol. Kenan went on to direct impactful projects for NASCAR and ESPN's acclaimed 30 for 30 series, including 40 Minutes of Hell and I Hate Christian Laettner. His work, including collaborations with Spike Lee, continues to highlight powerful and often overlooked stories across the sports world. Most recently, he directed the hottest docuseries out right now on Amazon Prime, Soul Power, which was executive produced by NBA legend Julius Erving and narrated by Grammy Award winner Kamwana. What's good, Kenan? Welcome to the show.
What's up, Uriah? Thank you for having me, brother. Appreciate it.
Before we got on, everybody, I had to give Kenan his props. When you mentioned The Last Dance as the pinnacle of docuseries when it comes to basketball, and you look at his work that is on Amazon Prime right now, if you have not watched it, you must watch Soul Power. It's 4 episodes. I told Kenan I watched all 4 episodes in a day, and I'm going to go back and watch it again. So kudos to you for doing such a wonderful job.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you. It was a labor of love, man. It took years and years to get it done and a lot of focus to get it done. But when you got a good team, man, I had a great team around me for this one. It's easy to make something memorable.
Yeah, teamwork is everything, and having the right people in your corner and supporting your vision is what it's all about when you try to create something that will last a long time and brings value to the basketball space. So let's highlight your past and your journey to start off before we get into Soul Power. So take us back, Kenan. What first drew you to filmmaking and storytelling?
I think filmmaking was just something came natural to me. I used to always steal my dad's video camera. When we went on vacation, he put it in the closet. I go in the closet, get it. Me and my little brother Q, we would go make movies all around the neighborhood. All my friends would star the movies. We write up. Like instead of doing papers in high school, I would do movies. And then once I started doing it, my people in my class, my friends would be like, oh, let Kenan do a movie. Let him do a movie. Because it would be a break from class. We bring the TV in. And I'd be making them I have one video camera and another video camera. I'd be recording them from video camera to video camera. That's how I edited.
Right.
This is back before editing equipment. I was just in there hitting play and hitting record. And I'd wait for that moment, Uriah, get the scene right. Boom, I hit pause. And that'd be how I was editing the thing. So it was something I did for fun. It was always fun to me. And,
was it the huge one on your shoulder or the handheld one?
Both. That's
Both?
the two. I had the huge one on the shoulder was I recorded to that when I played it from the handheld one, which we filmed with.
Right.
So I go back and forth from which is that hand, a big old one on your shoulder that thing had a big ass VHS tape in it. And so I record onto that VHS tape, and that VHS tape would be what we played at school in the VCR at school.
Yeah, my uncle growing up, he used to have the huge one, man, the big Sony joint. And I remember I picked it up one time. I was a kid. I'm like, man, this is heavy.
Yeah, you got to mean it. You got to mean it. You have the thing on your shoulder.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the mentors or experiences that you had influencing you growing up. So when you look back at the early stages of your career as a storyteller, can you mention any people or opportunities that kind of help pave your way towards your documentary storytelling?
Yeah, NFL Films was really the launch pad for me. They came to Duke recruiting and they recruited myself and a couple other Duke students to become young producers. They had a lot of older producers at NFL Films who had been there for decades. They wanted a crop of young producers. They went to different schools around the country. Notre Dame was one and Duke was one, and they got a number of young people. And from Duke, they got Tiffany Montgomery, another one of the young African-American producers she was actually the first because I was delayed a year. So I was the first Black man to be there, but Tiffany was there before me 1 year. And then Rob Gehring and some of the other good producers out of Duke who were making TV shows at a Duke Cable 13 underground cable network at Duke that we could run the airwaves, we could do all the equipment in there. And so me and my boys, in fact, one of the guys who I made this show with at Duke called Duke Sports Inferno was the one who got me onto Soul Power.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, has a Brett Goldberg made the show with me along with Ben Tischler and John Siegel, Joe Kermser. We made Duke Sports Inferno. He called me and said, "Hey, I'm working with Coach George Karl. He has an idea for a documentary. Will you hear him? You want to hear him out?" So Goldberg and I haven't worked together since 1999,
Wow.
right? And he called me and was like, "Just hear Coach out," and that's how Soul Power got started. But you asked me about mentors. For me, Steve Sable was a big force in my career, and that he showed me a lot of faith in me when he brought me on to write a number of the shows. He saw that I could write. He's a former football player, which I didn't know till I started working there. He played college football too.
Hmm.
He's a former football player, and he saw in me that passion and love for the game of football. Like it was in my blood. I grew up in Texas.
Hmm.
So it was down in my cells, Uriah. Like the game was all, was a part of my very being and everything I loved. And he could see that connected nature and that passion I had. And so he saw that in me, gave me a chance to write some great shows that were big shows for a person my age that didn't normally get to write those kind of shows in NFL films. And that really gave me the confidence to go forward in my career. So he was probably the biggest one. But I got to say, as a young Black filmmaker, there weren't many other young Black filmmakers to look to at that time, and part of what I've done, and we can talk more about it later as we go into the conversation today, but it started a group called Athlete to Artist, which is for athletes who want to be storytellers, who want to be on-screen personalities, who want to be film directors. And I have a group of 5 young people who are really talented who work under me, and I'm providing them with what I didn't have,
Right.
which is some career guidance along the way. Because when I started, it was like Spike Lee, and that was it. And if you didn't have a
Yeah.
direct line to Spike, there was no one to look up to at the early 2000s.
Right.
And so I want to provide them with a bit of the roadmap to avoid some of the pitfalls and to maximize their time when it comes to being creative professionals.
Yeah, because I guess the Hughes brothers and Anton Fuqua, they hadn't
Mhm.
really been pushed out there.
Mhm.
They didn't have the prolific careers that they ended up having.
They
Yeah.
were just beginning, yeah, and they seemed so far away. This is before social media, where you
Yeah.
could reach out to people, and you couldn't. These people were like so many levels above. How could you possibly contact them? So
Yeah.
it was kind of a pick and find your way with my other partners who were filmmakers in the late '90s, 2000s. We were picking and finding our way by trial and error.
Mhm.
So that's a tough road to hoe, a trial and error road.
Yeah, well, the inspiration you got from Spike and obviously Steve Sable, it shows up in your work, the quality work that you do. But let's go back to, you mentioned George Carl, and
Mm,
his name is in the credits with Dr. J and Soul Power. I want to talk about the original inspiration. Now, you mentioned Carl
mm,
coming to you and I
mm.
guess pitching, for lack of a better word. Can you tell us how that went? Like the conversation that went down? Did it happen, at someone's house, at a
Yeah, no,
restaurant?
it was on the phone. I had a lot of doubt going into that conversation, Uriah,
Okay.
because I'm like, it's hard to sell a documentary series. The ABA's been done, hasn't it? Didn't we see like Semi-Pro, and there was an HBO documentary in the '90s that was done?
Yep.
And I'm like, hasn't the story been told? There's not much meat on the bone there. And George Carl got after me right away, being a coach. He was like, "Nah, you don't know what you're talking about, man. Let me tell you the stories of the ABA." And he started to break it down to me about the first of all, the style of play, the innovative style of play that they were playing fast, loose, free, playground style basketball when the NBA was boring and staid and slow. And that really got to me when he told me that. But he started talking about the locker room, Uriah.
Mm.
That's what got me to talk about the locker rooms. He was saying, like, I came up in Pittsburgh for him. And he's like, I barely ever hung out, talked to anybody Black. He said he used to go hoop with at the playground courts, and Connie Hawkins had a game there he would run. And Connie Hawkins started picking him in his game. That was
Mm.
the biggest honor as a teenager before he went to go play in North Carolina, that he get picked in these Connie Hawkins games. So that gave him all the validation he needed to go forward. He said that was my first kind of interactions with Black dudes. He said then you get to ABA, and it's like 50-50 in the locker room. And he
Mm.
said that process of them getting used to each other, learning how to talk to each other, learning how to interact with each other, and hearing the players' stories, the other ABA guys' stories about that was just it was enlightening. It was funny, and to see the way they bonded together was really something where it made me say, okay, You may have something with this ABA story. We might have something worth pursuing.
Well, I look back in memory at watching your docuseries. There are so many instances where, as an NBA fan since 1983, I grew up as a Sixers fan. I just recall throughout my different iterations of fandom, your teenage years and your adulthood. And throughout that, my whole experience watching the NBA, you knew about the ABA, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like this different world and you're like unsure and it seems kind of foreign to you as a fan. So I never really thought to explore that historic aspect of the ABA and how it merged to the NBA, the reasons why it had to merge. And your series unlocked the door and it's allowing
Mm,
NBA fans to walk through and not only gain the history of it, but an appreciation for all the
mm.
players that laid the foundation for guys like Steph and LeBron and all the current guys. So that's a great launch pad for this next question because themes, like you want as a storyteller, as a director, as a producer, I'm sure you have themes that you start with or maybe evolve after the production has been presented to the public. So what themes would you say were important to you when you were highlighting Soul Power?
The most important theme was the parallel between what was happening in the ABA locker room and what was happening in the United States of America.
Mm,
Like the culture and the community, are they working in tandem with the sports?
mm,
Because I think that's the biggest lesson I learned from the 30 for 30 series and working with that team at ESPN Films is when the culture and the community are being affected in a parallel type of way to what's happening on the court,
mhm,
then you got something special.
right.
And so that's what I was really looking forward to see, like, how are these new movements that are happening in America in 1967, how are they being played out in the ABA? And so when you see a story like in episode 3, when you see Ellie Brown's story, and you see a woman who's given the reins and given an opportunity to lead, and she's given an opportunity to make decisions,
Mm,
in an organization that's already good. She's given an organization that's good, but she's challenged with making it great where no one else has been able to make it great. The fact that she's able to put together a board of directors of all women
mm,
in a male dominated sport and turn out results that no one else has been able to turn out results before says a lot about her excellence, first of all, and her free thinking and the free thinking of her team of women she had with her, but also just the conversations we have today about who gets a chance to lead, who should have a chance at a spot at the table, and who deserves what, and what is truly a meritocracy. Like, it says a lot when you give someone a chance, like she's given a chance and she comes up with the goods when she's given that opportunity.
yeah.
And I saw this thing, Uriah, then it was online. This little girl, the last week in Kentucky, had a book report. And her book report is like choose an important woman who's a revolutionary woman, and she did Ellie Brown.
Yep.
Yeah, she did
Yeah.
Ellie Brown, and she put that Ellie Brown's my favorite. She owned the team and has her little kid drawings on there, and that just made my heart happy to see a young lady get to learn about a woman who's a leader,
Yep.
as someone who can be, just a target for her to aim towards. So that was important for me in the series to find the societal links between, what's happening with us as a community and what's happening on the court.
Yeah, that's a great mention of theme, and that portion of that episode resonated with me because I didn't know there was ever all female board,
Me
especially during
neither.
that time period, and in
Yeah.
Kentucky of all places. The
Yeah.
Kentucky Colonels had a lot of success in the ABA. So let's go to the more creative side because I think as a creator myself, someone who appreciates visuals, who appreciates the auditory aspect of what you present to the public. I would like to know, and our listeners would love to know, your creative process when you were developing each of the 4 episodes of Soul Power, from research to the actual filming and editing.
Yeah, for me, I like a collaborative development process and script writing process. I do better when I'm speaking to someone like we're talking now.
Right.
Like my ideas flow quicker. And I learned this is actually a basketball thematic lesson. John Wooden would always have his UCLA dynasty teams practice in threes, run drills in groups of threes. And I found that talking in groups of three. So myself, associate producer Tony Corrado, and executive producer Brett Goldberg, we would meet. And having three people together, you get to decisions quickly.
Right.
It's better than even going one-on-one. So I get a group of three, and I had a few different triangles that I would talk within. That was one of them. I also had a younger people triangle where I talked to folks who were in their 20s. My son, Quan Harris Holley, he's a really good filmmaker, a young filmmaker. He's in college still, about to graduate. But I would talk with him. I would talk with Elijah Diarra-Suba. He's a young athletes artist, a former edge rusher from App State who's now a director. And we would talk. We get in these triangles and we would talk about what are the points when you hear me say this out loud? What are the points that give you the aha moments? What are the points that make you feel? What are the characters that make you like, I want to learn more about them? So it started with talking in groups of three. That's where it began. So running ideas and talking in groups of three to figure out what got us going, what gave us juice. And then we had a symposium in Denver where we brought all the creative team together, about 9 or 10 of us, including some really well versed ABA experts like Scott Tarter, who runs Dropping Dimes Association, in charge of getting and trying to get uh, payments and means for ABA players who've fallen on hard times since they've left the league. He knows a ton about the ABA and he knows these guys personally. So he flew to Denver. Coach Carl was in Denver. Brett Goldberg was in Denver. I flew to Denver. We brought a younger team out there also with Corey Jackson and a little older Tony Corrado. And we all got together and we had a draft. This is the first time I've done this, Uriah. So we had a draft. So the draft was, and I wanted to make this like, I always feel like when you're doing something creative, you have to be having fun.
Yeah.
If you're not having fun, it's going to show up on the screen. The greatness will show up on the screen if you're not having fun. If you are having fun, the color and the life and the vibrancy will show up on the screen. So we had a draft of characters. So it was like 7 of us. And you all get to pick. If I had one character to put on the screen to tell the ABA story, who would you pick? And we went down the row of who we wanted to draft because that was going to become our interviewee target list.
Okay.
Yeah. So we know, of course, Dr. J was off the board right off the top. George Gervin went out early, but there's also all kinds of people you wouldn't expect. Like Nikki Giovanni was drafted, like as an idea of like, oh, the poet of that time. Like, could she tell the story of what was happening in the 70s? All kinds of out there ideas. Ellie Brown, of course, got on the board and got drafted. That's when we started hearing her story. And so to hear the characters that got people going was a great place for us to start because I think no matter what type of, whether it be anime or even like a scripted movie or a book, a novel, it's all about characters, right? We got to have people we can commit to, people who we feel like we're on a ride with. And then it got to be everybody. You might commit to Rick Barry. Like you might be feeling him here, Ryan. I might be feeling Spencer Haywood. But as long as we have someone on the screen who we can relate to,
Right.
I'll keep watching. And I want to see what happens with them. So we started with the triangles, and then we moved to a character-based focus, and that really carried us into the creative process. Because big thematic ideas
Yeah.
are hard for people to run with.
Right.
You know, you should have, that's kind of the subconscious thing you gotta have in your backpack. You know, you have all your weapons. That's one of the weapons out of your backpack, but it's the last one out. It's not the one you start with. And so the triangles of conversation and the character draft, that was really how we got the process started.
Wow. I did not know what to expect with that question, but that response is absolutely fascinating. The triangles and then having a draft, because like I said earlier, the whole idea of this ABA era so long ago, hard to connect with, but when you infuse that fun and you have creativity flowing with all of your team, it showed up on camera for sure. So let's talk a little bit about the whole documentary aspect of telling stories, because sometimes it can be a little dry depending on, how it's presented. But with what you do, you have to have facts, obviously, but you also want to inject emotion. You want to elicit a response from your followers and viewers so that they can come back to it and watch like I'm going to do, and also to share it. You want word to spread. So how did you approach that balance of having the facts of the ABA told and having an emotional component to what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I'll start with a quote. One of my mentors from NFL Films, who also brought me to NASCAR and has helped me so much in my career, probably the most influential individual in my career, is a gentleman by the name of Jim Jordan. He's a very behind the scenes guy, so you won't know the name, but you'll see in his productions endlessly. He started NFL Films and he helped create a lot of the college football follow docs. Like if you watch Road to the College Football Playoffs on ESPN,
Right.
that's his production, and there's a ton of productions that are his. But he always says, "Don't ever let the facts get in the way of a good story." Don't ever let the facts get in the way of a good story. So the facts are the facts. They're what they are. But you got to think of the storytelling and how you would tell it. If you were sitting at a dinner party and you wanted to get everyone going on your story, how would you tell it there? Tell it that way first, and then you can plink the facts in as you go. Because the facts aren't going to inspire people. They're interesting, but they're only as interesting as the characters, as the tension, as the who wants what from whom and what happens if they don't get it. Those classic storytelling questions you got to answer. And so when it came to like kind of putting the facts together, the facts were what they were, but we really focused on like how do we build the tension, and that really came from the editorial team.
Okay.
The editors on this, like I've never used so many editors on any production I've ever done in my life. We used like 15 editors on this thing.
Wow.
And we were constantly trying to wrestle with a style to get the style right, because so much of it to me when you're doing a historic doc is style. So it doesn't feel old. I don't wanna watch nothing old.
Right.
The only person I wanna watch who does old stuff is Ken Burns. He's brilliant. I don't know how he does it. He can do the oldest boring style and you love it.
Right.
But I'm not Ken Burns. I don't got that type of genius he has to do that. So I wanna make it feel hot. Like if you watch episode 3, when Dr. J goes to the Rucker to work on his game, and you hear the music playing. It's like doom, tsh, doom, doom. You see the Rucker, you see people on top of the buildings, you feel New York. Like I want to feel more like a music video. I want to
Right.
feel more like where it's drawing you into the excitement. Even though it's an old topic, it feels new. And that's all John Householder, who's a young, brilliant editor. Corey Frost, he's the editor. I call him the Iceman Corey Frost. He cut the sizzle that got this thing sold. Saul Horner from NASCAR days. So I just brought in the team of the best. Dan Schulman Means, who was a new addition to my team for this iteration. He was great. And Jeff Sikovic in LA, who's just so organized and such a detail-oriented thinker. Like it was the editors. And there were, like I said, there was 15 of them who all tried to touch this and tried on this project at some time, and all of them offered something to the project.
Mm.
But in the end, that's the team who brought it home. And they were just so intent on delivering a style that made you sit up and made you say, this feels new. Because it had to.
Right.
Think about Uriah. Like these dudes were the hottest. They were hip hop before hip hop. These dudes were the youngest, hottest, coolest brand. It can't be stale. It can't be scientific. It has to be, it has to be edge and beats and rhythm, and it has to be that because that's what the ABA was. You
So,
know.
so two things stood out, and I have to mention this. And I think to take something that's so antique as the ABA and to make it fresh and bring it out to the masses of basketball fans. Getting Common as a narrator locked me in immediately because his voice is so recognizable.
Mhm.
And I was fascinated to know that his dad played in the ABA. You brought that to the forefront. So
Yeah.
that stood out to me. And talking about transitions, I think the tension aspect, there was like the subtitles, like what did the ABA have to do to compete with the NBA? Like you'd put the text on the screen. I'm like, oh, what's this? And I read it. I'm like, okay, I want to keep locked in. So your team did a hell of a job, and I'm glad that you were able to mention them by name because guys work really hard behind the scenes, and you being the head guy, giving them props is really important. So I want to talk about something that maybe might have been personal to you, right? So you interviewed a lot of people for this, a lot of guys that I didn't even know started in the ABA that transitioned to the NBA, which I found cool. But were there any specific interviews, Kenan, that stand out to you or moments during filming that kind of hit you personally?
Yeah, I say there were two. Spencer Haywood. Spencer's such a soulful dude, and he's such a real person. And his interview was just so fun. It was one of the first ones we did. It was one of the first major ones we did. And we had to, you got to get these guys to say yes. It took a lot to get them to say yes. And we were in um, Las Vegas where we interviewed him, and we didn't know whether he was going to sit down for the interview. We were there already. We'd interviewed some other people. We didn't know if it was going to happen.
Right.
And we had to make a decision to kind of go all in to get him, and we did. And his interview was so memorable. So Spencer's one, and then the Iceman, like we went to San Antonio. He's one of the last interviews we did. In fact, he might have been the last interview we did. And his vibe, it's like a great jazz player, like a great jazz, like this super talented horn player who everything about him just screams style, just screams. He has such a flow to the way he talks and the way he interacts. And to hear him give a great interview, but then at the end, he sat with us more. And like I said, our crew is purposely filled of, there's the veterans like me, but there's the younger guys, there's Elijah and Corey and all these younger guys, Sasha Shapiro, these younger cats who were on the crew, who he's giving them game, just
Right.
talking about what it is to be a husband and what it is to be a good, faithful person in your belief system. And to see them sitting on the edge of their seat, these younger people, people act like, oh, young people don't want to listen these days. That's not true.
Not true.
If you give them good wisdom like he was given, they'll listen. And so to see him spitting that game, and it was awesome, man. You're right. He was sitting there. And we're in this San Antonio stadium. They're about to play a game that night. So we're in the San Antonio arena. He's spitting the game. We have a huge projector of his highlights playing in the background. His highlights are playing as he's putting these young boys up on game. And he's doing finger rolls in the background. It was one of those moments in your career. I'm like, man, this is beautiful. This is
Iceman.
beautiful. It made me just real thankful, real grateful for that moment.
Yeah. Shout out Spurs. I got Wemby on my chest. He had a big game winner last night. Man, Wemby is the truth, man.
Yes, he is.
Side note, we're in season 3 of NBA Now and Then. We launched season 3. We did a comparison of Wemby and Wilt Chamberlain. And there was so many interesting dynamics to that comparison episode. I'll definitely share that with you because Wemby is doing things that no one's ever seen from someone his size.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at Wilt in the late 50s, 60s, and going into the 70s, no one had ever seen anything like him before. So that comparison resonates with me. And San Antonio, is there a more lucky franchise in any sport?
Right.
David Robinson,
and
Tim Duncan.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love saying I've never been there, but I'm happy for it.
SGA and George Gervin. You guys got to do SGA and George Gervin. Just watch them both operate around the top of the key, the free throw line extended.
Okay.
Watch the moves and the way they float and glide and the way they seem to be playing slower than everybody else, but can't nobody block their shot. Like when you guys get a chance, SGA and George Gervin when you get a chance.
Okay. Here's the thing. We might have to revisit. We did SGA and Penny in season 1.
That's good.
Two big point guards, but we can always we can do whatever we want with creativity.
Yeah, I'm just throwing it out there. Y'all know what to do. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I appreciate the input.
Artist Gilmore and Dwight Howard too.
Artist Gilmore is definitely someone we want to jump on in terms of a comparison. But let's get back to your show. When you have such a project with the scope that you had and, so many decades to cover, there's challenges that arise, obviously. So from your seat as director, what were some challenges that arose for making Soul Power and how did you overcome them?
The biggest challenge was when you're telling a story that's 9 years long and has so many great characters and so many little interesting aspects to it, it's hard to narrow it down to 4 50-minute episodes.
Right.
So we left a lot of great, great, great characters on the cutting room floor. I mean, great characters, man. I'm telling you, painful cuts, Uriah, where we had guys who had their individual stories were so impactful, so interesting, had so many twists and turns. I'll give you 2 names. One, Wendell Ladner. He was like the Burt Reynolds playboy of the ABA.
Okay.
Wendell Ladner. He was Dr. J's protector too.
Okay.
He could really fight. And he would be diving on the stands. He was known for, he'd be diving in the stands so much the fans would be getting pissed off on the road. He was diving all over ladies and knocking their drinks off and stuff. He'd be diving. He was like Dennis Rodman before Rodman.
Okay.
Yeah, Wendell Ladner. He looks like Burt Reynolds. And then John Brisker. This dude, he's a Detroit cat who was good friends with Spencer Haywood. And he was the heavyweight champion of the ABA. I mean, he terrified people. If you see the photos of this brother, like he'd look at his eyes, like the soul within this guy, like you can see a great deal of pain.
Okay.
Like it's like a tempest, it's like looking at a storm. And we all had put together a great segment about him, and that got to the cutting room floor. Now, that was the hardest part. I give big props to Noah Malale, who was at Amazon at the time. He's moved on now with Spotify and The Ringer. He's a good storytelling executive, very good. And he helped us focus in on the characters that were essential and helped us narrow it down. And that was really a big moment for us to get narrowed down to the essence of what the story was. And Noah was big on helping with that. We have a lot on the cutting room floor, and this is the first project in my 25-year career where I own part of the copyright. So we actually, our team of Truth Plus Media, which is George Carl's company, Hidden Pictures, which is our other partner, Todd Lieberman, Todd Lieberman's company, and then my company, Holley Films, we jointly own the copyright, which was a challenge in of itself. We took the extra steps to do that and to have to figure out ways to fund the project in the interim periods and going to banks and going to, it was a lot of energy, but the benefit of that is that all that cutting room floor material, whereas in the past it would belong to the other partners I work with, now We own that. And so we have that as other great stories that are still here to be told.
Wow, those names I never heard of before, and I will surely go on Google and look
Yeah.
those guys up. It's funny you mentioned Dr. J and the Enforcer and all those guys. Watching your series, of course, I knew that the Nuggets were in the ABA at first, but I've forgotten, or maybe I didn't know to begin with, that David Thompson was on that team. And David Thompson was the guy that I think introduced Jordan in the Hall of Fame because he
Mm-hmm.
was that inspirational. Like when you showed footage of the dunk contest and he did the reverse,
Mm-hmm.
no one had ever seen that before. We
Mm-hmm.
take it for granted because we see it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I could just imagine a fan in the 70s seeing an NBA player or ABA player do a dunk where they
Mm-hmm.
do a 360 reverse. It
Yeah.
truly resonated with me.
Yeah. Okay, Ralph Simpson, who was a great ABA player with Denver, who also happens to, by the way, side fact, happens to be the singer India.Arie. That's her dad.
Really?
Yeah, so Common's
Okay.
dad played in the league, and India.Arie's father played in the league.
And yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but he was a
yeah.
great player too, great player. He talked about being at practice with David Thompson, and the first time anyone had seen a 360 dunk, he said he didn't see it. He was standing in the paint. He said he
Mm.
heard him coming through. He said it sounded like a helicopter, just the sound of his force spinning in the air.
Wow.
He said he looked up and saw the end of him spinning, just boo, and he dunked it. He said, I never seen anything like that. I never heard anything like that either. A dude who's 6'3", 6'4", who create that much force and do all the dunks that he could do. So yeah, I just wanted to say that about Ralph Simpson, India.Arie, and David Thompson's helicopter 360 dunk.
Yeah, ironic that Common and India.Arie were children of that era, and how
Yeah.
they create music is so soulful and creative,
Yeah.
like their fathers were on the basketball court.
Yeah.
Really cool connection there. So, what type of impact, Kenan, do you want fans to take away, or what kind of impact or conversation do you hope that
Mm.
your docuseries sparks among viewers? Soul Power.
Yeah. First, I would like for it to be a validation of the players who played in the American Basketball Association. They are revolutionary pioneers, and they haven't gotten their props.
Mm.
And in fact, they've gotten kind of dissed when it comes to movies like Semi-Pro and stuff, who was based on the ABA, but it has pitted them as clowns and look at the funny nature of this league. And a lot of the books and movies about the ABA have been of that nature. And these guys deserve for basketball heads like you to have the opportunity you've had to see the very through line of what we watch today comes back to these gentlemen here. And so that's the first thing is this validation for how great these guys were, how trailblazing they were, guys and women were. Secondly, the more subtle message I think is when you look at the community that these people formed, when you look at what they were able to change in terms of player empowerment, in terms of negotiating contracts, in terms of leverage amongst athletes, they changed sports forever. And in a lot of ways, by changing sports, a trickle down of what they started is what you see with NIL today and young athletes. And the shift in power from the authoritarian nature of an institution who has all the power. When I played NCAA football, I didn't get paid anything. And I remember going to the mall with my homeboy Lamar, and
Mm.
his jersey was for sale in the mall. And he
Mm.
didn't have the money to buy his own jersey.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I remember us just standing there. It's like one of those moments like, this ain't right. Like something's not right about that. But
Yeah.
the seed of change was planted by Spencer Haywood
Yep.
when he came out of college early. It was planted by Moses Malone when he came out from high school and went straight to the league. It was planted by the ABA. And so I want people to see that yes, they are revolutionaries, but what I really want them to notice is the brotherhood, the community, the aspect of us looking out for each other, the aspect of even though we have a smaller platform than those that we are fighting against and we're trying to overcome, that because we're able to be considerate of one another and look out for not just my needs, but I'm looking out for my needs and your needs, Uriah. Like that mindset changed things.
Yeah.
And I think in this day and age, keeping that mindset at the forefront of how we operate is important.
Hey, I can tell you that when I watched the final episode and you ended it quite appropriately with the idea of the ABA players getting financial compensation through pensions that they didn't get, they were promised, but it never came to fruition. I think that as a spectator and an appreciator of the game and just the human side of being an athlete, it just told me like, wow, the people behind this docuseries really care. They're not just not a money grab to, get their name on Amazon Prime. When I watch it again, I'm going to go back and I'm just going to now that I've talked to you, I can now say, okay, wow, this is why it was presented like this. And I respect that you guys were able to put that in the last segment because those guys, like you said, pioneers, they paved the way so that guys can make 50, 60 million now playing the game of basketball. So kudos to you, man.
Yeah, thank you, man. There's a lot of work put in by those like Scott Tarter, who was featured in that final segment of Act Four, Episode Four, excuse me. Um, and they put a lot of years and years, decades of labor into making those payments happen. So to see that happen while we were filming, it happened in the process of us filming. It just happened to fall like that, where we made the doc, and all of a sudden these payments finally come through. So it was a blessing of timing for us as a filmmaking team, but ultimately a bigger blessing for those ABA guys who deserve it.
Yeah.
They deserved it.
Awesome. Awesome. So we're going to shift right now, and I have some what if scenarios for you. Some really interesting scenarios had it gone a different way for these players or franchises. There might have been a domino effect, and I'm curious what you think would have happened in these scenarios. So let's start with the great Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, and something that happened in the early 2010s where Chris Paul could have teamed up with him. So my question to you is, what if Chris Paul would have played with Kobe had David Stern not vetoed the Lakers and Hornets trade? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think Chris Paul, his mentality is ferocious. And I think he and Kobe together, a young Chris Paul getting game from Kobe
Mhm.
and being able to facilitate the offense where Kobe can be off the ball more. I think Kobe won five.
Mhm.
Five? Yeah, I think Kobe could have won seven. And then the
Mm.
conversation about LeBron, Kobe, Jordan, and the GOAT would have been way, way different.
It's well known that Charlotte has fumbled a few draft picks in their franchise history. You mentioned SGA earlier, but let's talk about Kobe Bryant. 1996 NBA
Mhm.
draft. The Charlotte Hornets traded him to the Los Angeles Lakers for Vlade Divac.
Mhm.
What if the Hornets didn't make that trade? How would that franchise turn out, and how would Kobe's career be different?
First, let me say I lived in Charlotte for like 12 years. All
Okay.
right, so I got to start with that. So I'm saying this as a Charlotte person. Like I'm like that franchise, man. This can't seem to get it together. I love some people work for that franchise, but I think that might have still messed it up. Be honest. But
Mm.
Kobe, I was thinking about once I saw this question you posed. Like I'm thinking about what Kobe's high school coach told to the Lakers. I think it was Jerry West at the time, who was
Mm.
running the show with personnel. What did he tell him about this kid? Like about his work ethic, just about his work ethic. Because they had to work out the one-on-one that Jerry West did with Kobe. I wonder what he told him about his work ethic that made Jerry West pull the trigger on that trade. Because and what Charlotte didn't know, if they would have seen the workout and knew that he had this type of mind state, how could you possibly let that kid go?
I tell you, I know he would have gotten a lot more playing time, which is what Kobe
Right.
was ticked off about.
Mhm.
Because he had you had Eddie Jones, you
Mhm.
had Nick Van Exel.
Nick
It
the
was hard
Quick.
for him to get minutes. So this
Yeah.
next question, this next what if is right up your alley with the ABA. So
Mm.
George Mikan
Mhm.
had $1 million check in his pocket, and he
Mm.
tried to play hardball with negotiations when Lou Alcindor was coming out of UCLA. He didn't give him the money, and therefore he ended up going to Milwaukee. But my question to you is, what if he did give him that $1 million? And what if
Mhm.
Lou Alcindor accepted it? How would that impact the ABA and obviously Lou Alcindor's career?
Can you imagine Lou Alcindor in New York? Because he was going to play for the New York Nets. Can you imagine
Yep.
Lou Alcindor in New York? Can you imagine if Dr. J had gone to New York with Lou Alcindor?
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
not only they've gone into the NBA because they've been the biggest market team, they've been way better than the Knicks at that point in the mid '70s.
Right.
Knicks coming out of their championship years in the early '70s. I mean, they think about the force that franchise would be still. I think to this day, if the New York Nets had come into the NBA with Lou Alcindor and with Dr. J on their team, I mean that'd be crazy. They had Rick Barry for a moment too. They could have Rick Barry and Lou Alcindor. So and if they have Rick Barry, Lou Alcindor, and Dr. J, I'm just like, that's
Ooh.
crazy. They'd have been a force, a force, a force. They may have made the Knicks move to New Jersey. The Knicks may have to go to Jersey instead of them.
That would
So,
have been a
yeah.
crazy dynasty, to say the least. To
Yeah.
say the least. All
Yeah.
right. All right. So we just wrapped up our interview with Kenan, Kamwana, Holley. And again, thanks for coming on our show. We truly appreciate it. And we wish you all the best in all your endeavors in the future.
Yeah, thank you, man. It's been very, very fun talking with you. You're right. I'm having a good time, man. And I look forward I love the comparisons. I love the comparisons across the eras. So it's good. Keep the young people, the young guys up on their NBA game, on their college basketball game, just up on hoops history.
Thank you. And that is our goal, Kenan, is to bridge NBA eras and to connect generations of fans around the world. We've been downloaded in over 55 countries, and we're picking up a lot of traction. And I'm glad that we're able to connect with you and help promote Soul Power, because it is, to me, there's The Last Dance, and you're like 1A and 1B. Soul Power is that good. So if you're listening, please check that show out on Amazon Prime right now. The next time you hear from us, we will be interviewing Jonathan Osborne, former UNLV player. He is now a prosecutor, attorney, and we're going to talk NIL stuff. So if you're interested in how that dynamic is now with name, image, and likeness, thanks to Charles O'Bannon, or is it Ed O'Bannon? I
think it was Charles. Was it
Charles.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it was Charles. One of the O'Bannon brothers. Yeah.
Yeah, they changed the game. On behalf of NBA Now and Then, the 50, 40, 90 interview series, I'm Uriah. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care.